Well, good morning and welcome to Wake Up in the Word. Thanks for joining me again today. We're in a countdown to his coming, session 4. Just this week, we're going to be revisiting that particular series as we look at the signals that let us know we're in the last generation before Jesus comes. Let's look at one of them today, and I want to really allude to the fact that some of you have been bugging me to death about dealing with another word that wasn't originally a part of my Countdown to His Coming series, where, like any good preacher, they all started with a particular letter, where we love to do that to help you remember things. And every one of the points start with a C. And so some of you have already let me know that, oh, well, what about the fill in the blank? I can't even mention the word because an algorithm might just pop in and decide that a censor needs to watch my video and decide whether or not it should be eliminated from one of the platforms I put it on. That's how bad it is in this day. But that particular virus that starts with a C is one that, in almost any way you can describe it, starts with a C. If you use the country of its origin, you use the political party of that country, any of the other things to name it, then you're using a C. Well, it's amazing how this little thing can cause so much havoc among peoples of the world today. Does it have anything to do with the second coming? Well, it might. And I've not stepped completely into that yet, but let me tell you why I think so. We are looking at a kingdom. I'm going to read to you a passage from Daniel today. We're looking at a kingdom that's going to be in charge of the world when Jesus comes back. What does that kingdom look like? And as we look at some of its characteristics today and tomorrow, we'll see that one of the key characteristics is that it manages to somehow control everyone in the world. How in the world would you bring about such an event? So let's look at that kingdom and see what it looks like first. In Daniel chapter 7, which, by the way, Daniel 7 is not a rehash of Daniel 2. Many of you have been brought up with the idea that an interpretation from the 1800s about Daniel is absolute gospel when it's not. It's just somebody's opinion, okay, of the way that these kingdoms are fulfilled. Daniel 7 is not a rehash of Daniel 2. Daniel 7 is a second coming passage. It's about what the world looks like in the years before Jesus comes back. So the kingdoms described therein are not the kingdoms of Daniel 2. Now, I'll prove that later, perhaps in another video. But in particular, there are four kingdoms described. And to just show you how this passage ultimately is about the second coming, all you have to do is go down to verse number 13 in Daniel 7, and you see what happens at the end of this last beastly kingdom. Daniel writes, "In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and men of every language worshiped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed." Do I have to explain who this passage is talking about? This is the Messiah. This is the ultimate description of Jesus Christ coming in his glory to set up his kingdom. It's all about the second coming. And the country, not country, the empire, the beast, as it's called in Revelation, that's in control of the world when Jesus comes, has been described already as a part of the vision. But I want to read just the explanation the angel gives Daniel to describe what this last beast is all about. To do that, you go down to verse 23. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on the earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise different from the earlier ones, and he will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. This would be the person that Paul describes as the man of lawlessness in the New Testament. Some would call him the Antichrist. And it says the saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and half a time. So here we are looking at a kingdom that is different in that it swallows up all the kingdoms of the earth. Now, does it do this by warfare? Doesn't have to. Matter of fact, as it manages to maintain control over the world, notice that there are these other kings within the kingdom that seem to be operating and helping conduct this worldwide empire. I think this particular domain is one in which the leaders say, oh, no, have your little countries and your own little flags, and the idea that you might be running something within your own borders, but we're going to run the whole ball of wax. We're going to run some things on the entire planet. And here's the scary thought about how this works. We have managed to connect our entire planet through a world wide web, through a world economic system. It's already there, it's already in place. But for people to surrender their sovereignty and give up their rights to the control of this overarching kingdom, something has to happen. And that's where the virus comes in. You see, there has to be a catastrophe of such magnitude that it affects the entire world. Most of our disasters are natural or they're localized. If it's a tornado, a hurricane, an earthquake, something else, it affects one country or group of countries in a particular region, but it doesn't affect the whole world. A pandemic, on the other hand, has an entirely different structure. By being a worldwide virus, a worldwide pandemic, then suddenly it affects everyone in the world. So I've been asked the question, do you think this is going to be what is used to bring about this end time kingdom? Well, it could be. In the beginning, I said, well, if it's not, it sure is a good dress rehearsal for it, because it is that worldwide event that's needed. And that worldwide event needs to bring down the economy of the world, and it's doing it. It's doing it right now. Nations shutting down their economies, causing massive unemployment, 50 million folks without jobs right here in our own country right now, as a cure, as a way to stop it. And, you have to shut down things, cause an economic catastrophe that also envelops the whole world. Right now, we're patching it up by printing money. That's literally what the nations of the world are doing. That cannot last. That's a bubble that has to burst. But we keep doing it. And ultimately, what it's going to do is going to put all of the nations of the world into the same melting pot of disaster, one that's going to allow us to freely and thankfully surrender our sovereignty to a group that says they will get us out of this mess. That's where the beast comes in. The beast doesn't have to roll through our countries with missiles and bombs and planes and tanks to conquer us. You only have to get us to surrender our sovereignty and become a part of this worldwide economic system that's going to rescue us from the disaster of a pandemic. And of course, if you're going to be able to control, that's the key word here, to control the world, then you have to be able to find a mechanism through which you can do that. We're being told by folks at, of course, Bill and Melinda Gates, their foundation, is saying that everyone in the world deserves something. This is what's behind ID 2020. The idea that everybody deserves two key things. Now, hang on, listen to this. Everybody deserves an identity. Now, wait a minute. I've got an identity. I don't need you to stamp me with some other new form of identification. I know who I am, and God knows who I am, and my country knows who I am. Oh, but no, we need worldwide identity. Hang on. And then we need worldwide vaccinations. We need to be able to vaccinate the people of the world. They deserve this protection from these terrible diseases, and they're trying this out in countries all around the world right now. A lot of controversy going on in Africa. Some of my African friends, you're seeing this take place all around you. And this is where we're going. There has to be the threat, the pandemic, the disease no one can seem to cure. There has to come the miracle cure through a vaccine. But then we must be able to identify every single person on the planet and make sure they've received the vaccine. We've got to be able to track it and track them to make sure that the world is safe. If you're one of those who doesn't get on board with that, you are endangering the world and you become a threat. Do you see where this is going? So, friends, this may or may not be what's going to usher in the beast. But if it's not, it sure is, as I said earlier, a good dress rehearsal for it. So, friends, keep looking up. You say, well, how do you know? How do you know if this is it or not? Well, you do what Jesus said to do. He said to watch and keep watch until I come again. Don't fall asleep at the switch, but keep looking up until Jesus comes. Thanks for spending a few moments with me today. I'll see you again right here tomorrow as we wake up in the Word.